Once upon a time, there was a dark night where a guy remembers the way he passed away. He was in his office typing on a laptop, where while having a coffee, he suddenly had a heart attack. When he wakes up and sees that he is alive, he realizes that he is in a coffin. At that moment, 4 people carry him in that trunk to bury him. In the meantime, they talk about how bad it was for the man who is in the coffin. Unfortunately, the woman who had bought him had not had the opportunity to be with him, so they think of taking advantage of it. Suddenly, out of the trunk comes Huan, the protagonist, who has come back to life. Seeing this, those who were carrying the coffin all run away scared. Although, he thought to ask them some questions, since he didn't know how he got there. He remembers who was the owner of that buy, being one of the main porcelain merchants in Ningju City, but he fell into a difficult situation. But when they went through that situation, the Su family accepted them and fed them every day. So the prota's father wanted him to join the Su family by marrying Su Queen, the eldest daughter of the family. Being aware of the plans, Su Queen's father gave the protagonist a prescription for porcelain, but after that he became seriously ill. Unfortunately, the doctors did not know what it was to treat him. Even so, Huan died and was later scheduled to be buried out of town. Returning to the present, the protagonist undresses and decides to go swimming in the river. On the spot, he finds a beautiful woman bathing who upon seeing him covers herself, whereupon she quickly goes to get dressed and fetch her sword. The prota also covers himself and is embarrassed to be seen without clothes. This woman introduces herself. Her name is Ning Zilan, and tells the prota that if he dies for his sword she will consider him innocent of the pain he has put her through by seeing her without clothes. Upon learning her name, the protagonist tells her that he will remember her. But this does not please her very much, so she puts her sword around his neck. He comments that he wore different clothes in the afterlife, which might frighten her. However, Zilan does not understand anything he says. Because of this, she decides to look at the place, where she sees the prota's clothes lying nearby. But when she looks back to where the prota was, she realizes that he ran away and yells at him that he won't get away with it. Later, the Su family discusses what happened to the prota, as they don't understand how he came back to life. They blame all the rumors on the coffin bearers. They also think about how he poisoned the protagonist with a glass of wine, so he can't be alive like that. So, Su Queen thinks about that rumor that has been spread, although his father tells him that they did everything possible to save him. But he also knows that if he reveals to his daughter that he was an accomplice to the murder, she would not claim him. So, this man asks his daughter to worry about the competition she will soon participate in. Unexpectedly, behind her appears the protagonist, who is dressed in a way that scares them both. At this, he tells Mr. Su that his actions will have consequences. For his part, Su Queen reminds him that they are engaged and that he must listen to her. Running a few steps, she falls to her knees on the ground and urinates on herself. Seeing this, the protagonist stops scaring them and takes off all the ugly clothes he was wearing. Also, he tells the girl that he was only joking with them and that he just wanted to let her know that he was canceling the engagement he had with her to get married. As he leaves the place, a floating digital sign appears telling him that he has finished his first mission, where he receives 10 influence points. Then, the same sign tells him that he has a chance to win in the store's raffle. So the protagonist agrees to what the sign tells him, but he wonders how he will have a chance to win. So, he decides to push a button which then shows him the item he got in a wrapped roll is displayed. At that, a virtual sign tells him that this is the method of manufacturing high-quality porcelain for rare items. But the protagonist doesn't know what to make of this, so he looks at an advertisement for a porcelain event, which is very convenient for him. Suddenly, a man in a yukata appears behind him, threatens him with a sword and asks him to go with him. At night, the man ties the prota with ropes and puts him in a stone hole. Faced with this situation, he thinks he will die again, but the man who kidnapped him tells him that this will not happen and reminds him that he owes them a debt of 20 taels of silver with interest on the loan he made to them. Hearing this, the protagonist regrets having come to that place and having to pay that debt. Still, this man tells him that his death will be quick this time. But when he is about to attack the prota, he just cuts the ropes and lets him free. After he lets him go, he tells them that he could bring the Su family to kill them. This surprises the kidnapper, as he thinks he is crazy. Returning to the city, all the men commit that they will give things to Leng Jai. Then, the prota who is watching this asks a man why they do all that. He explains that Lin Yuan has a rule that once a month there is a contest of appreciation, and the one who is chosen by Leng Jai will have the opportunity to meet her. As it happens, the protagonist is the one chosen, but he refuses to introduce himself in person and asks her to just read his letter. From a distance, Leng Jai looks at the prota's letter where he says that if she does what he says, he will make her an idol and become famous all over the world. Back in the city, some people meet with the Su family to praise her porcelain work. At that moment, the Proto appears and thinks little of the porcelain event they are promoting. Hearing this, Mr. Su shows him one of their porcelain works, where he asks him to appreciate the texture, the luster. It is a masterpiece for them. But still, it doesn't impress the Proto. Meanwhile, Mr. Su thinks about how he stole the secret method from his family. However, to the Proto it's just old-fashioned, which offends Mr. Su very much since no one makes such art with porcelain. But the protagonist contradicts him by saying that everything can do that, thanks to him. So, he asks some people on the spot to show what they did with the technique the Proto taught them. Surprisingly, they all did very good jobs, so they are grateful for the Proto's help. As if it were nothing, he breaks the porcelain to present the new porcelain he produces. Then, he sends for Leng Jai, so everyone is impressed that she is there, as she is a very beautiful and admired woman. She appears in front of him bringing in her hands the porcelain work that he made, so she is very obedient to his orders. Instantly, the Proto presents his porcelain work, which is more than 1,000 years old. In this work he shows Leng Jai with a guitar. The local people are amazed at the shape and color of the porcelain. Even a young man who was going to watch the show marvels at what he sees. Now, Leng Jai asks him how people are going to buy his porcelain work, to which he replies that very easily, people will be able to order and pay a 50% deposit first, and the order they place will be at their door in 7 days. Hearing this, the craftsman man questions his idea, as this method the Proto proposes is an excuse to raise funds, which would be a well-covered scam. So, people also question all this since the Lin family has not had money for a long time, so they would not be able to cover the production of the items. So, to some people this does not seem wise. Even his apprentices doubt that his idea is feasible, so it seems safer for them to continue making items and selling them as usual. All this seems perfect to the porcelain artisan, since this way the Proto will not be able to compete with him. In the face of all this, the Proto defends himself by saying that he has given them porcelain designs as samples. Furthermore, he will allow them to give him suggestions either there or to him in person. But the Proto asks for a share for his 10% patent for the merchants. Even so, Mr. Su belittles the Proto's work and makes them see that he has been making porcelain designs for a long time. In the midst of all this, the Proto brings out another of his designs, this time a more original one, which is a small-sized Leng Jai moving doll. Fortunately, people are captivated by this item. The Proto explains to them that the joints are made of wood and it has a very realistic tone, and that to top it off, the doll's clothes can be changed. So, continuing with his propaganda, the Proto tells them that its price is 290 silver coins and that there are only 10 available. At that, people like crazy start to offer their money, since no one wants to stay without their doll. He also tells the merchants that they can pay a membership of 500 coins per family. Seeing all this, Mr. Su refuses to split the commercial alliance he has. However, the Proto makes him see that he cannot control everything and that times have changed. Later, the Proto is recognized as the winner of that year's porcelain event with his amazing invention. Again, a virtual sign appears above him indicating that the Proto completed the task, to which he brags about his talent. Mr. Su thinks he is arrogant. Then, while talking to an old woman, she faints and falls to the ground, feeling the pain of a heart attack. Immediately, the Proto worries about this and thinks about using his influence points for a medicine. Already in the exchange system, he chooses a pill called Succel, so he has to exchange all his influence points to get it. He determines to save it and makes the exchange. He then gives the pill to the old woman and she recovers, so he thanks her for her help. Besides, he gives her the bottle of pills so that when she has another attack she can take them. As a thank you, the old woman gives him an amulet she had, and he is happy to see that there are still good people. Afterwards, the Proto goes to meet the man who was planning to kill him for the debt he owed him to pay him back, which the man tells him that he has messed with the wrong people. At this, the Proto offers to pay him back, but he refuses as it's not all about the money, so suddenly, he goes to attack Proto with his sword. This man attacks the Proto, but does not get to hurt him, but cuts him under his sleeves. Then, he attacks the men who were around him, so Proto applauds him for such a feat. He explains that he saved him because of the amulet he was wearing, which was given to him by the old woman, as she would also give one to her son. So, it turns out that this man is her son. However, as the Proto says this, he tells her to give him the money. After a while, the Proto thinks that he should buy some equipment to protect himself. Suddenly, two men, who are armed, threaten him that in order to continue on his way he must pay them. Then, the Proto finds himself tied up in a room, where the two men who kidnapped him are sharpening a sword. He tells them that there is no need for them to be sharpening it. One of the kidnappers tells him that he will cut him into pieces, to which the carrier claims that he does not recognize that he is an important person, that he is the son-in-law of the Su family. Upon hearing this, the kidnappers discuss what they will do with the Proto since he seems to be an important person. However, they don't want to offend the Su family either, so they decide to apologize to Proto by releasing him. So, the Proto tells them that when he returns to the city he will reward them, but before leaving, he asks them to make him something to eat. Later, these two kidnappers meet the bandit leader Yamami. At that moment, they remember that he is the young master of the Su family. Suddenly, the Proto appears in front of the door of the room and they identify him on the spot. He asks them what he has to do with the family name. As he is about to leave, one of the men holds him from behind and tells him to wait. Once again, the Proto finds himself tied up, this time next to a tree, while the bandit chief warns him that if after killing him he is reincarnated again, it must be in a noble family. Immediately, a sign appears indicating that if he is resurrected again, all his achievements will be reset to 0 and it will be more difficult to recover them. Suddenly, Zilin, who is riding a horse, attacks the boss, so he drops his sword. Then, Zilin tells him that she will help him and then settle the score with him. At that, the chief confronts her and pretends to take her as his wife. Then, the whole place is shaken by the riding of an army of soldiers, and the chief and the bandits surrender when they are overcome. Zilin, who saved the Proto, is their leader, so the bandit chief is frightened. Even so, he quickly throws a dagger at him, but the Proto receives it, hitting him in the chest. Immediately, Zilin thinks of taking the Proto to be cured because the dagger is poison. On the way, the poison toxin quickly spreads in his body, endangering his life. So, Zilin worries about this, even though the Proto is fine since the dagger mainly hit an inkwell he had, but he still pretends to be badly wounded. Later, at the Ningbohu residence, the Proto lies on a bed. At that, a man arrives in the room and informs Zilin that the Count requests an audience with her. Before leaving, she asks him to forget the mountain incident. So the Proto agrees, as he sets about studying and learning as a family. Ning has a prodigy life. As Proto leaves the residence, he hears two guards talking about the Ning family, where the old man is her father. Later, the Proto also overhears two women talking about the biggest fireworks celebration since the city was built, where many men admire young Miss Zilin, where maybe they can see a handsome man. With all this, the Proto wonders how such a celebration can attract so many people, since two very important people of the place don't get along very well. Then, he goes to ask two young women if all the princes are already married, to which they answer no. Hearing this, he immediately goes to protect the young lady from being snatched away. Meanwhile, Miss Ning meets her father, who informs her that an important prince is already on his way, and a closer one has already arrived. Also, he explains to her that they are here for the city's biggest fireworks celebration, but they actually came for a marriage proposal. Still, Zilin is suspicious of these men's intentions, as they are jealous of how well their government is doing. Therefore, the father explains to him that if they reject them, they will join forces to attack them. At that moment, Lehu's son arrives requesting an audience, so it seems very fast to Mr. Ning. The man who arrives is called Guo Yang, who upon arrival sends to leave in the room several chests with gold, being a present for Mr. Ning, and so he agrees to give his daughter as a wife. But this does not seem convenient to Mr. Bohu, because it would be too hasty. Even so, this prince tells him that this was his father's idea and that this way they will avoid many problems, otherwise it would be very bad for them. Suddenly, the Proto appears, telling him that he has arrived late, since he is the only future husband of Zilin. Hearing this, everyone is perplexed. So, the prince accuses him of being a lie, since he was not aware that there was a marriage contract, so he sends one of his guards to take him out of the place. When they are about to take him out of there, Zilin thinks that it would be an emergency option for him to play along with the Proto. So, she goes and hugs him, telling them that he will be her future husband. This shocks Bohu, who knew nothing about it. However, his daughter beckons him with her hand on his back so that he does not tell the truth. Then, the Proto, continuing with his deception, makes Prince Yang see that since he has a marriage contract with Zilin, it would not be convenient for him to think of breaking it. This makes the prince very angry, so he lets the Proto know that he will remember it. After this whole affair, Bohu angrily asks the Proto for explanations, so he proceeds to do so. First, the Proto asks Mr. Bohu to calm down so that he can introduce himself. He makes him see that he is doing some business with porcelain. For this reason, Bohu remembers the name of the Proto, who, while sleeping, was carefully reviewing the memories of the body he currently has. In them he saw that Mr. Bohu made a marriage contract with his father for both sons to marry each other. So, the Proto reminds them of his family's situation, and that the most suitable thing for them is for him to marry Zilin. Also, this will make it possible for the Proto to claim that he is a member of the Zhang family, among other reasons. Although it is a reasonable thing for Bohu to do, he does not find it suitable for him to be the Proto, but his daughter does make the decision to marry him. So she asks her father to take the wedding invitations to the whole city as soon as possible so that the wedding can be held as soon as possible and so that another prince cannot make a marriage proposal to her. Her father is told that he has had the troops working those days, so they should take it slower. At that point, the Prota suggests some things to Bohu about invitations. Meanwhile, at the Su mansion, Miss Su Queen is back. Then, the Prota appears to her on the spot, who greets her kindly, but she is angry with him because her father is very bad because of him. Without remorse, the Prota tells her that he sure wanted a doll but couldn't afford it. But he tells her that he is there to discuss the marriage contract between them. So, he throws a card at her which falls between her buns, which offends her greatly, so she sends her guards to arrest the Prota. She also does not believe that Ning Zilin is willing to marry him. Therefore, she asks the Prota to give her the porcelain-making manual, and she helps him cover up the affair. However, the Prota sends for several soldiers who are protecting him and thus makes him see the authority he has as the prince of the Ning residence. Miss Queen is surprised to see Mr. Ning's subordinates in the place, so she thinks whether the Prota is really married to his daughter. So, he tells her that he has received the invitation, thinking that she will be very happy. But before the guards of both of them fight each other, a man asks them to stop. Also, he apologizes to the Prota for Su Queen's performance. Upon seeing him, the carrier wonders who he is, so the carrier tells him that he is King Zion. At this, the Prota thinks if it is someone else who wants Zilin's hand. Zilin proposes a solution to the problem that was arising, so he grabs Queen and slaps her, which impresses the Prota very much. Of course, Queen asks him why he slaps her, to which the latter asks him if he is happy with what he just did, which seems to the Prota somewhat drastic since he could have disciplined her with his parents. So, somewhat annoyed, the Prota leaves with his army. But this man tells Queen that they will have their revenge later. Again, at the Ning Bohu mansion, the wedding ceremony takes place, where Bohu rejoices at his daughter's marriage. Suddenly, a woman enters the place insulting the Prota, accusing him that she slept with him and that she promised him that he would marry her. Of course, all this was planned by Kang, who hired this prostitute. With all this, the Prota mocks the woman's performance and accuses Kang of having hired her. Kang tells her that he has nothing against the Prota, which gives the Prota a lot of relief. As he tries to leave the place, other women come after him to ask them not to get married. This outrages the Prota, so he accuses Kang again. For his part, he understands that Kang is not very angry about the situation. Suddenly, the women I hire go against Kang, so he lets her know that he will have consequences for trying to deceive other people, in what several people in the place agree with him. In the face of this, the carrier accuses them of stealing the Lin family's porcelain method. So, people comment that the Su family is very shameless and that the Prota has made a proposal with them where they would be ruined. Back on topic, Kang keeps accusing the Prota of being with a prostitute and that he doesn't know her. However, the Prota takes out a document that some merchants have given him where some things that affect Kang are evidenced. For this reason, Bohu gets angry that Kang keeps accusing the Prota. At this, Zilin is impressed by how the Prota knows all that, so he was buying information from Lang Jai. Still, Queen keeps accusing him for the prostitute named Menel, to which the Prota slaps Kang for not disciplining Queen. Menel is impressed by how the Prota knows her name, so he tells her that in the past they were good friends and that she had a heart mark on her chest. The Prota is moved to embrace the girl, who then accuses Kang of having hired her. Seeing himself defeated, Kang leaves the place with Queen. But first, the Prota tells them that the Su family will no longer be able to sell porcelain and that those they have sold before must compensate him for their profits. Even so, they do not decide to do so. The Prota has already spoken to the merchant agents about a patent he holds on blue and white porcelain. In fact, if they do not comply with the contract he has established, they risk not being able to sell. Finally, the Prota makes those who accused him leave his party, which leaves Bohu impressed by his cunning. Later, Kang is angry about what happened to the Prota, since he predicted everything he would do. But a woman asks him to calm down as she has a plan against the Prota. Still, Kang promises to avenge his humiliation. Meanwhile, at the Ning Bohu mansion, the Lai family presents the Prota with 10 silk boxes, as well as gold and silver for his wedding. This makes the Prota very happy, so Bohu admires all the money the Prota receives for the porcelain patent and his wife's money. Then, the children of Zhu family, Niu family, Yang family, and Ma family, which 4 noble families, arrive at the place. At that, those who watch the situation are amazed at the fame of the Ning family. Then, a man who wants to give a wedding gift to the Prota is introduced, but another person belittles the Prota. So, the man who plans to give the gift asks the man to do what he has to say in private so that he won't ruin the celebration, so he waits for him to leave. However, this man comes for another reason, and that is to propose to Zilin. Of course, Mr. Bohu thinks this is nonsense, which the Prota will take care of. For this reason, the Prota confronts the man, who tells him that he has neither talent nor virtue to marry Zillan. However, the Proto thinks that his wedding was ruined by so many people who would interrupt it. To top it off, one of these men tells him that since he is involved in sexual matters, the Ning family should be ashamed to accept him, so to clear it up he asks him to participate in a poetry contest. If the Proto wins, they agree to whatever he wishes to do. Taking advantage of this, the Proto slaps the one who was challenging him, accusing him of being an offense to him. However, he agrees to the poetry challenge, so he sets out to rectify it. So, the Proto begins to recite his poetry, while doing some poses like the wine fairy, the tenderness, the general, also the cold sage. All the verses he recites make an impression on those present, including Zillan. Afterwards, the Proto gets tired as he has a sore throat and throws a book in the face of one of the men who accused him. Seeing all this, Bohu is amazed by his skills, so he gives the Proto a sword to eliminate his enemy, where he will be at the forefront of battle with Bohu. This doesn't sit very well with the Proto, as they might kill him in the process. Also, Bohu wonders why the Proto's poems are different in style, to which a local man replies that it is because of the Proto's talent, as he observes and analyzes from different angles. At that, the Proto remembers that in his other life he had studied and memorized all those poems. Instantly, the four young teachers pounce on the Proto to let him know that they were wrong, as his poem was beautiful and so he could be their big brother. Finally, the Proto and Zillan proceed to get married, so they then enter the bridal chamber. In it, the Proto gets very excited, but Zillan reminds him that it is just an act, so the Proto promises not to behave like someone lustful. As they proceed to sleep, someone tries to attack them, but is unsuccessful. The man who attacked Proto was hiding in a tree, but what he threw at him was a dagger with a message. When Proto reads it, he realizes the warning about an assassin named Jin Bohuan who is wanted by the government. So the Proto takes courage and goes out to catch this assassin, while Zillan doubts that he can do it. Even if, the Proto makes him see that he will not attack him head-on but that he will deceive him, so he asks her to believe in him. Meanwhile, in the surroundings of the mansion, Bohuan is prowling around the rooftops, evading the guards of the place. He realizes that the guards are stricter because word of his presence has spread. Suddenly, in the bridal chamber, Zillan shouts that the Proto has been murdered, so several guards enter the place. There they find the Proto all beaten up lying on his bed on his wife's legs. When he sees Bohuan, he accuses him of assaulting him. But the person whom the guards discover and show before everyone is not the murderer. Instead, he is behind the crowd and attacks the Proto with several daggers. This wounds the Proto, who is still lying on the bed. Bohuan then storms out of the place, but suddenly meets the Proto head-on. At the moment, Bohuan seeks to seal his acupuncture points, but the Proto informs him that it is not possible since the poison he made for him is mixed with vegetables which will make it digest faster. With no other options, Bohuan asks him to let him go and will help him when he needs it. But at that moment, he proceeds to attack the Proto with poison daggers in his arm. However, these do not cause him any damage, at which Bohuan wonders if his poison has failed. Without realizing it, he steps on a bomb on the ground that leaves him dizzy, which the Proto didn't think would work. The Proto explains to him that it was a landmine made of thin ceramic and pig intestine, which, when pressed by the ceramic on the floor, would explode. But some of the guards wonder how he didn't get poisoned by the darts. Whereupon the Proto explains that he has armor put on his arms, just for fun. Finally, he tells Bohuan that before doing something stupid by attacking him, he should check the news first. Elsewhere, Bohu is told what happened to the Proto, so he realizes the fake murder scene and the traps that the Proto had set. At that, the man who informs Bohu regrets that the Proto has already passed his age because he could be a good martial arts master. Returning to the place where the Proto is. At the end of the situation, the digital sign appears informing him that he has finished the task of influence and that he has won a prize from the store, so the Proto accepts the gifts on the sign. Unfortunately, the prize is only a body strengthening, which disappoints him as he was expecting a sum of money. Seeing this, he wonders how this will help him, so he decides to punch the wall, which hurts his hand. For the time being, an evil woman gets angry that they have not been able to defeat the Proto, so they can regain Kang's dignity. On the other hand, in a meeting room, a man tells about the attack the Proto suffered by the assassin and how he was able to get rid of him by means of the traps he had made. In the place, some children are amazed by what Bohuan did and that the Proto could almost die. Then, the man continues with the story, which he alters a little to make it more interesting. As he is about to tell what happened to the Proto when he was about to attack the assassin, a commercial begins. This doesn't go down well with those present as they want to continue listening to the story, and they don't understand what a commercial is. So the Proto explains to them that it is to promote the sale of some Bohuan assassin dolls, where he shows them the doll. The doll can even throw toothpicks from its mouth, which amazes the viewers. Even so, the Proto makes them see that this doll is not very expensive, since it only costs a penny and is guaranteed for 3 years. In case they want to buy it, he tells them to look for Mr. Guo. For this reason, the Proto talks to him where he tells him that there will be more opportunities in the future. However, his wife reminds him of the reason they are there, and that is to investigate who hired Jin Bohyun. Then, the Proto fixes his wife's attention on Mr. Guo, who gets most of the profits from obtaining those toys. Mr. Guo realizes that he does not have enough informants, but the Proto is aware that the narrator is the main supplier of information and news from that place. So with the summaries he gives, they can analyze anything faster. Then, the Proto and his wife analyze the message given to him by Jin Bohyun, where they realize that this was used by the audit department, by whom he was already captured. Therefore, instead of being executed, he secretly became an assassin following the government's orders. Instantly, the Proto takes Seo Jiu by the arm to remind his boss that they could take revenge for what happened. But when they enter the boss's room, they realize that it is empty, where they fear the worst. In the place they left a necklace, which the Proto picks up and thinks about how to recover the hostages quietly, and without causing trouble. Later, in the western part of the city at midnight, the Proto investigates the location of the group of thugs who had arranged to meet him. Upon arrival, their leader turns out to be a woman, to which the Proto asks him to hand over Akai, who in turn subdues him on the ground and asks the Proto to hand over Bohyun. He asks her to tell him her name to know how dangerous she is. However, she agrees to say that she is the daughter of Gong Dongfei, Auditor General. Despite this, the Proto scoffs that she is his daughter, which makes her angry and threatens to cut off Kai's head. Even so, the Proto continues to mock, saying that the Emperor is in no hurry. Also, he takes Kang Zion pointing his needles at his neck, not knowing how to cure the poison they have. This contradicts that the Proto says that he is her lover, but by hurting him with the needles she worries and asks how he knows he is her lover. In a very simple way he tells her that Kang himself told him. So then, he begins to explain how he suspected that she was behind all this, since Su Quan would not be able to hire an assassin. For his part, Kang does not have enough experience to do so, so everything points to the fact that there is someone involved who has enough power. After listening to all this woman orders the Proto to be killed. This, for his part, makes them see that they are making a mistake, since he was able to capture Bohyun. At that, he throws a match to a cart full of explosives, which generates a big explosion so they can flee. Upon waking up, Akai reminds the Proto to compensate him for his sword, but the Proto tells him not to remember that. Later, they find Quinn and Zilan tied up. Later, the Proto thinks about how to protect himself from the audit department. The next day, a group of soldiers go with a wagon in the forest, where suddenly a stone is thrown at them that almost kills them. In that wagon there were goods that the Proto was carrying, that an armed man together with his army sends to tell the Proto that if they see them again in the place they will finish with them. This group, already in the Ning Bohu mansion, reports what happened to the Proto and Bohu, which angers the latter, who goes to capture them along with the Proto. But the Proto realizes that it was not a robbery, since they only destroyed the merchandise and did not kill anyone. Apparently, someone informed them of the place and time where the merchandise would be. Even so, Mr. Bohu reminds the Proto that in the past other people took advantage of the city, so he must put an end to them. So, Bohu instructs the Proto to lead the troops to confront these bandits, which he does not like very much. However, the Proto teams up with a group of soldiers to investigate the place. On the spot, his wife tells him that this bandit may have some connections, so he asks him if he will be able to deal with it. Knowing this, the Proto makes him see that he cannot refuse to go and that he still has mines available. Also, his wife reminds him that they are cunning people, hard to find. To all this, the Proto yells at them to come out from where they are and face him head on. In the meantime, some soldiers mock him, as his idea does not work. Finally, the bandits come out of hiding to confront the Proto and his army, whom he sends to eliminate the bandits. But without even starting to attack, these men surrender, justifying that they only wanted to join the army. Similarly, when the Proto orders them to be killed, his wife asks him to stop. She makes him see that there are soldiers who turned into bandits when they were defeated, although after being recruited, they became loyal. Demonstrating humility, the carrier agrees to what his wife says and tells one of the soldiers that they will be responsible for them, so they proceed to tie them up. Even so, the Proto and his wife are suspicious of this situation, as they came to surrender easily. The next day, in the market of Ningzhou City, the group of bandits who were recruited set out to enjoy a meal. At that, they demand the waiter to give them the most expensive wine he has. But the waiter, upon hearing this, acts aggressively and kicks the gentleman, thus rebelling a rebellion that is being planned. Afterwards, an employee cleans up the mess left by those men. who have not paid for everything they have eaten those days. At that, he calls the accountant and asks him to review a deed they left on the table. However, upon reviewing it, he realizes that it contains very important information. So he leaves the place and tells the employee to close the store for a few days and collect his salary. On the other hand, the audit department enters the place where the Prota is with his wife and Mr. Bohu eating. They arrive armed, led by Kang, and accuse Bohu of being a rebel. Meanwhile, the Prota, who is still eating, tells them why they do not solve things in a civilized way, but always using swords and fists. Still, Kang sends his soldiers to kill the Prota and his family, along with everyone who gets in the way. In the midst of this, one of the bandits who was recruited accuses Bohu of being someone unjust. For his part, the Prota scoffs at such an act. However, Bohu agrees to go with them without a fight. Apparently, Kang orders the officers not to attack Bohu's family, but his guards cannot be in his mansion. Finally, the Prota and his wife are left alone in the mansion, where he puts his plan into action. He had in mind that this would happen, so he designed glasses that allow him to see the footsteps of his enemy, as he commanded to paint the soles of the bandit leader's shoes and then follow them. So, he sets off with his wife to follow them. And we'll see what happens in the next video. Hit the like button and subscribe if you like it, and if you want the next part, write in the comments the word Supreme. Thanks for watching.